Alright, hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I believe I owe a bit of an apology. I haven't been around, at least on the public channel. If you've been following us on our consulting company side, where we do provide weekly videos to our subscribers exclusively to that service, I've been making content, but I've been wrapped up in a lot relating to the weather consulting business as well as school, so unfortunately I haven't been able to put out a lot of public content here on this channel, but I did want to make a quick announcement and also give you guys a little bit of a weather discussion today as I forget to put on my epic pen. Can you tell this is impromptu, ladies and gentlemen? Let's just actually pull that up here. I'm not even going to cut this out of the video. Let's just do that, if it will actually load. There it is. Okay. So listen, again, I owe you guys an apology. I know it's been a while since we've done a video here on the public side of the channel. Like I said, I've had a lot of things going on with the business. I've had a lot of things going on with college. Keep in mind, I am still technically finishing up my degree in meteorology. I have like 2 physics classes to take that are 200 level, but I've taken all the other meteorology courses, so COVID definitely threw a wrench in my college plans, just like everybody else. But anyway, all that aside, a couple of announcements here on the channel, and we'll do a little bit of a forecast discussion. It won't be a long video, but just want to keep you guys in the loop on what's going on. So number one, as you can tell, the hair still has not been cut, right? That hasn't changed. So we are shooting for 1,000 subscribers. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers here on the channel, I will be doing a live stream where I'll be cutting off all this hair and we'll be donating to the St. Baldrick's Foundation. That has not changed. And also, I had mentioned that the YouTube channel itself will not be technically monetized directly. The only thing that I make money off of is anybody that signs up for our weather consulting service, which you can check down in the description below on more information with that. So this channel really is meant to provide some content, give you guys a preview of what we provide with our consulting service, but most importantly, just give you guys free weather content, period. There are some videos that we do over in Prestige Weather that is not it's not available to you guys unless you sign up for our consulting services. But again, I will be putting out more frequent weather content here on the channel as much as I can. Things have been pretty busy. I know they're going to continue to get busy over the next couple of months, so bear with me on that. But I did see that we had quite a few subscribers sign up to our YouTube channel, and thank you so much for that. It's really cool to see. I know we haven't, again, put out a lot of content, so it was really fascinating to see that. You guys going back and watching some of the old videos we had put out. The other change that's going to be on this channel, I know that today, and I don't blame the creator as much as I do the YouTube algorithm. You've noticed now that there's a lot of weather YouTubers out there. I mean, originally it started with my partner Direct Weather. There was also David Schlotthauer out there. Of course, Ryan Hall came on the scene, totally just flipped this little space upside down and added a new twist to it, which a lot of people have tried to gravitate towards. For me personally, I'm going to keep it simple here. There's not going to be any edits. There's not going to be any thumbnails. I'm done with that. The thumbnail you see is the video that you're going to get. If the YouTube algorithm doesn't like it, so be it. Again, this isn't my main source of income or revenue. It's the business. It's me pursuing other opportunities. This is just a platform for me to engage with you guys and provide content, and that's all I care about. So there's not going to be anything really crazy about this with the thumbnails anymore. No clickbait thumbnails. I personally don't like making those. I think it's just kind of cheesy. To each their own, I guess, but me personally, I just don't like it. I'd rather just go with what I have. So that's what's going to happen going forward. You're going to get weather content. We're going to cover some things that maybe aren't even covered typically on TV, such as what's happening in the Rockies. We've had some snowfall actually taking place here in Wyoming and parts of Colorado. A lot of that's not really covered on TV unless if you actually live there. So we'll be talking about things like that. We'll be talking about drought. We'll be talking about the winter outlook and keeping you guys posted on that. Just all sorts of different things that are happening in the weather world. And if there's one thing I learned in meteorology, is that there's never nothing going on. I know that's a double negative, but there's always something that's happening, right? And so even if it looks like it's quiet, as we get more of the zonal flow to approach the region going into early next week, there is still something happening. There will always be a storyline in weather. So all those announcements aside, really one last thing, huge thank you to the 68 subscribers that we have. I mean, thank you guys so much for subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate the fact that you support this content, and like I said, I'm going to continue to market you guys for Prestige Weather, the consulting service, and even just any viewer, but that will not stop from us providing free content to you guys and just some general weather information and being able to connect with you. That's really what I care about. So anyway, let's get started. We're going to do a brief little weather discussion today, just give you an update on where things are at because I feel like I owe you one. And at the moment, we have this ridge really starting to build out in the west coast. And remember, ridges, upper level ridges like this, and we're taking a look here at the jet stream level, this is associated with areas of high pressure. And so a lot of the dry conditions we're seeing this morning, and let's actually put on here the long wave IR so you can see this better, a lot of the precipitation and the convection is coming right through Washington and Oregon. I'm actually expecting to see some pretty widespread rainfall totals. The other thing too to note is, remember, we have areas of high elevation here, so we could be talking about some significant snowfall in elevations higher than 6,000 feet. That's going to be really interesting to see. You got a lot of jet flow moving through this region, and the models have shown that this jet flow is associated with a long wave troughing feature out in the northern Pacific. That is eventually expected to shift towards the south to where places like Southern California and even the southern half of the United States are going to be experiencing much of that jet flow. We typically call this a zonal flow, which should actually bring some above average temperatures to a lot of the country, including the central United States, the upper Midwest, and even back towards the south central United States. Now, for my folks that live in Oklahoma and Texas, I'm not talking about really hot temperatures here. We're just talking about above average. We could be seeing anywhere between, say, the 70s and maybe even low 80s in some spots of southern Texas. But that's going to be later on into next week. We'll take a look at some of the models here in a second. But overall, a lot of our jet flow here, still meridional, right? So here's our ridge. Here's our trough digging down into the central part of the United States. Do have some stratiform showers moving through places like Missouri and Kansas, especially towards Kansas City and the I-44 corridor, getting close to that. We also have additional precipitation out towards central PA and even up towards upstate New York and just off the coast of New England, seeing some of that precipitation as well. We're not seeing snowfall with this, right? Our temperatures are just too warm for that. Whenever we're looking for freezing, we look at this, G, a potential height of 540, right? That's kind of the magic number, and that typically transcends to the surface where the freezing temperatures. So these temperatures are not cold enough to support snow. We're pretty much just seeing rain. Could be seeing some flurries in higher elevations of the Appalachians this morning, but for the most part, again, this is all pretty much stratiform rainfall. Some of it being lake enhanced as well, because remember, when we have westerly flow move over these eastern Great Lakes, that is going to help to produce some rainfall here and actually enhance it in the form of lake effect. And by the way, back towards our main storyline to start this discussion, here's our rainfall and even some snowfall potentially later on into the evening for the higher elevations just to the east of Mount St. Helens near Seattle, Tacoma. So that's really the jet pattern at the moment. Let's go ahead and take a look here at Weather Bell, and I'm going to minimize this here. And I actually didn't have it pulled up, unfortunately, so let's just pull that up here. Again, you can tell this is somewhat impromptu. But let's take a look here at the GFS and the 500, and I want to underscore this point because the thing with COD, College Due to Page, is it doesn't really show this to the scale that I want to show you. And here's what I mean. Take a look at the 500 millibar jet. This long wave trough we were talking about is out here towards the northern Pacific. And this troughing feature is going to continue to dig south, but as it does so, it's going to bring some really strong jet flow into the Pacific Northwest, and that's going to allow for convergence, surface level convergence, upper level divergence, and thus producing snowfall, but particularly at the higher elevations. We're talking about folks that are at 6,000 to 7,000 feet higher that could be seeing some of that snowfall with your temperatures cooling with height. So definitely expecting that over time. It might not be right away, but as we go into Sunday and then eventually into early next week, you do see that this jet, as advertised, begins to sag southwards. So places like the Pacific Northwest do start to quiet down for a bit eventually. It's not going to happen right away. It might take till even late next week for this to happen. But the main jet flow is going to eventually move into Central California. Could see some precipitation there. But overall, keep in mind of where your jet flow is. You got a little bit of a perturbation right over Wyoming, and into Colorado. That could be producing some continuous snowfall, especially for our higher elevations in north central Colorado and back towards Jackson Hole. But for everywhere else, right, the Midwest could see some additional showers as well as some displaced jet flow downstream of this ridge-trough axis. Now it especially takes us into Monday. Could see some rainfall chances that remains to be seen. But for the most part, right, a lot of our snowfall chances really don't come until, later on into early to mid next week, right? See, their freezing line is to the north. So any snowfall that I'd be concerned about is pretty much going to stay confined to the far reaches of New England and then eventually getting back up into New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and then Quebec. But for the most part, a lot of our snowfall in the lower 48 is pretty much just going to be confined to the Rockies as well as the Pacific Northwest. Now, that is a good sign, though. I mean, if you're somebody that wants snow, whether it be, in this case, the Northeast eventually, seeing these snowpacks begin to build is definitely a sign of seeing colder temperatures over time. Now, we are going to see some above average temperatures here in the immediate term, but if we look ahead at least to the second half of the winter, once it comes time to January, February, March, that actually could help to bring down those colder temperatures when they are displaced from the poles. We could be talking about our first kind of Arctic blast. It helps to support that cold air. If we get a snowpack to really build at the surface, albedo actually allows for cold air to be enhanced above that snowpack. So, like I said, once we get to January, February, March, we will see those cold snaps come down, whether it's El Nino or La Nina, regardless of that, and that will help to enhance those freezing temperatures as we get into that part of the winter. So let's at least take a look at the immediate term here and talk about our overall temperatures going forward. I'm just going to be using the GFS just for now for the sake of time, because again, this is a little bit of an impromptu video, but just to give you guys somewhat of an idea on what our temperatures look like the rest of the way. By the way, one thing to note too, this is taking into account the climatological average between 1991 and 2020. If you remember, it was originally 1981 to 2010. They've actually updated this pretty recently, I would say, to 1991 to 2020. So this is taking your temperatures and saying whether or not they're above average based on the 30-year climatological average. And as you see, look at these warm temperatures move through, right? You got a lot of this Pacific flow that cuts through a lot of the country, and that's going to help to supply some more moderate temperatures above average for much of the country from the central United States, getting back down into the panhandle of Texas. Again, you can thank a lot of that because of that Pacific jet. It essentially originates as a polar, but then comes more out of the south central Pacific, bringing in some of those warmer temperatures. And that's going to continue into much of the week here. That zonal flow is going to really stay intact, with the exception of the west coast that should see some colder than average temperatures. Look at that warmth. Now, keep in mind the GFS does like to side on the extrema of temperatures, but the GFS has done a pretty good job at least getting a handle on any sort of seasonal shifts in above or below average temperatures. So take this with a grain of salt, but still note that we are expecting to see some well above average temperatures for places like, once again, the central United States and the Gulf Coast. Pretty above average. I mean, we're talking about, in this case, at least with this run, the GFS is showing temperatures nearly 30 degrees above average. So actually take a look at that before we call this a video. And let's actually zoom in here. We can go by regions and then eventually get down here. We'll just do the Great Lakes for now. And look at that. I mean, the GFS, we're talking about temperatures in the low 80s and even the high 70s into southern Illinois. Look at that demarcation line, though, between your warmth and then your colder air. Could see a little bit of a convergent boundary play out there. We'll see how that suits up, because this is a pretty broad warm air regime, and sometimes when you get that temperature demarcation, you can get little convergent boundaries to set up and actually produce some precipitation if the conditions are right. So we'll have to watch that space and see if we can get some additional rainfall for areas in the lower Great Lakes that continue to deal with drought conditions. But that all said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I promise you, I will get out more frequent weather content here during the weeks ahead. I know we have winter season. Many of you have questions about El Nino, and I'd be happy to answer those here on some videos. If you have any questions about anything related to your weather, post those down in the comments below, and I'd be happy to answer those promptly. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you on the next video.